Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another Dokkan Battle animation analysis video. And ladies and gentlemen, we have finally made it to the grand day. Of course, for a bunch of animation analysis videos now, we have been taking a look at the super attacks for Trunks, right? The free-to-play one. We had the one when they got the TUR, and of course they had the cutscene from the Dokkan story event. We did a video on that, and of course we did a video on him when he was just an SSR, when we knew that eventually he was going to be an LR. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we finally have the big boy at LR, which is awesome. Now, I do want to talk about a couple of things before we get into the analysis of what we have for today. First of all, because I waited a day to do this video, which I do apologize, it didn't come out sooner, but it is kind of to our benefit because the boy iKevinX, who we use a lot on this channel for his videos, has actually given us a comparison, so we will get a chance to take a look at that. But I do want to note as well, when it comes to the animations, the interesting thing about this unit, right, if we take a look at them on the Dokkan Wiki, is obviously they do have a 18 key and a 12 key, but the 12 key super attack, as you can see, is actually the exact same super as basically the TUR super. So they just decided to basically use that animation as the 12 key, which is fine, right? We can go back to Dokkan World's video and then go to here, the middle of the video, right? And then see the super attack animation. Obviously, right, this is the exact same thing, as you can see. So again, like, it kind of stinks that they didn't add more onto it, right? That they didn't give us a little bit more for the 12 key super. You know, I don't know what extra they would have added, but I don't really mind because obviously this animation looked pretty good already. And not to mention, it makes sense for a free LR, right, that you're getting from the story mode, that they would kind of reuse animations like this. And not to mention, sometimes LRs do this, right, where the 12 key super attack is just the TUR super attack, or sometimes it's just an expanded version of the TUR super attack as the 12 key super. So I think it's alright. Again, because it is a free to play unit, it also feels like, you know, you can be a little bit more lenient with that. As well, the other interesting thing that I did want to note about this is that their active skill, right, if we go back to the full video here, what's interesting is that because they've already posted the 12 key with the TUR, this video that they posted from Twitter actually only has the active skill on the 18 key, which I find quite interesting. However, if we do take a look at this, obviously this is the story event cutscene, right? This is what people were assuming was going to be this unit's active skill, and obviously this ended up being the unit's active skill, which, you know, makes sense, right? Because obviously they already had a voice cutscene. Why would it not end up being the active skill? Now, with that being said, we are not going to analyze that in this video because, and of course I'll put a link to it in the description below, and as well it'll be at the end of this video. We already took a look at that animation in this one, right, in the TUR animation analysis, because obviously when he awakened into a TUR was when we got the cutscene, and obviously since the cutscene is the exact same as the active skill, then of course there's no reason to take a look at it again. So we are going to now take a look at the 18 key super attack, which I am actually really excited to look at. Of course, first we are going to look at it in regular speed, and then we will kind of do the slow-mo analysis on it. I really like, by the way, what they did with this 18 key super attack. It is really cool, obviously combining these different attacks from Broly and Trunks to kind of make a coherent unit. And not to mention, right, this shot right here is obviously the money shot. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. This LR just brings me so much joy. Like, I feel like this is just a unit that is so Dokkan, right? I know, shout out to the boy Platty on Twitter. I believe he was the one who tweeted that this unit kind of almost feels old, even though obviously their animations aren't like old looking or anything like that, and their stats, their kit certainly isn't like an old unit or anything, but it kind of almost feels nostalgic in a weird sort of way. And maybe it's just because Dragon Ball kind of invokes that feeling. But by golly, this animation is just so cool. It's chock full of so much like Dragon Ball Z-esque goodness. I'm really, really excited to take a look at it. So let's go ahead and obviously get down and dirty and take a look at the nitty-gritty details here. So first of all, I was kind of thinking with this, I kind of thought that this was AGL Trunks when I first saw this. I was like, wait, what? But obviously it's similar because, of course, the pose that Trunks is hitting is, you know, from the scene where, you know, Trunks first goes Super Saiyan, right? It's supposed to be mimicking that same pose. And on that note, I do believe if we go to the Dokkan Wiki here, we go to global, if we type in Trunks, I accidentally hit caps lock, whoops, and we go to AGL Trunks, right? Obviously, with the transform card art, right, you can see that this, like, exact card art is, of course, this exact thing. So it would not surprise me. They obviously didn't reuse the assets because, of course, the card art looks different from this, right, to this. But it wouldn't surprise me if they referenced that and maybe kind of used it to help make this card in some way. But obviously, it's not the exact same PNGs, right? I do like that they also have Trunks' eyes open. I do think that's a cool little effect. And I also really like, first of all, just kind of this setup of the shot here, right? I really like the fact that they have Broly also stanced up in the background, and not to mention in that sort of iconic Broly movie pose as well that he hits when he has the blue hair. That is a really cool little detail there, and I like this sort of like introduction. Again, I know I keep saying this, and maybe it's just because they like to make a nice intro to the super attack, but I swear that Dokkan is doing these animations where they're very, like, intro-esque to start off the super attacks now, where they have this thing that kind of introduces the character into the scene. But to be fair, I think that's just what makes a good Dokkan animation, right? It just kind of goes into it. The only thing that is a little bit weird here, right? I think that this looks okay, right? With Trunks obviously lifting his arms up and then getting into this position. The only thing that is a little bit jarring is because the shading on the hair is so dark because you're seeing kind of the bottom half. When he turns and then you see the, you know, like lighter yellows, it does look a little bit off-putting, but it is already there, right? Like if we go back, right? It is quite literally just at the top of the hair. It's just because of the angle, so I can't really blame that. But obviously I just figured I would point it out. So we have Trunks then charge forward, right, which I like the change into this, although I guess to be fair it does go back to dark right away, so maybe that is a little bit jarring though that it goes from like dark to light and then back to darker again. But nonetheless, though, with Trunks charging... Trunks? Yep, Trunks charging forward. It looks really good. Obviously, you have him bring his arm forward here. And I love the little blur effect that they have, right? It kind of makes it look like they're zooming past the screen. That looks really, really good. Interestingly enough, Broly also doing the same thing here, right? You can see that, of course, as he... also, I love the fact that they have him, like, ready up, right, to do the motion and not just immediately have him go into, you know, this, like, zooming forward pose. They actually have him kind of lift up a little bit. The key also looks good, but yeah, as Broly zooms by the camera, you can see that they have the same sort of effect, right, where they kind of make it look like Broly is zooming past. I will say, I swear that I've seen this Broly asset before, and I think it might even be in this same card, but we already looked at the TUR, and obviously, oh, no, I guess it is right here. Okay, yeah, so it is, this particular asset from the 12 key when Broly zooms forward right there. Okay, I was going to say, I knew that this looks way too familiar for it not to be something that I'd seen before. It's so funny, by the way, that they're all actually included in the card effect, right? So then they kind of end up here, which is really cool. Paragus moment, by the way. As well, we obviously have Trunks come in and start rapid punching, which looks pretty good, right? Nothing too crazy in terms of the animation, but I think it works, right? It's very simple animation, but it, you know, serves its purpose, and not to mention, it's cool that they have Trunks obviously set Broly up by having him punch the enemy away, and you have Broly come in. I will say, the one thing that I don't like about this animation probably is this part right here. When Broly's coming down, it looks fine, but then with him flipping, right, they definitely do not have enough frames in here with the flip, because it's like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4... 5, and then he's flipped. It just feels a little bit choppy. It definitely looks a little bit better in fluid motion, obviously, but I still think it could have been a little bit more frames in between there. But nonetheless, obviously we have BROLY then charge towards the screen, which I will say is a bit of a shame that they kept the asset from this distance away. And the reason why you can tell that is because obviously when BROLY gets close, the face looks a lot blurrier than the rest of BROLY, right? So obviously they're using the asset that was meant to be seen from here rather than the other way that they do it sometimes, where they use the big asset and they just shrink it, so when it's small it looks a little bit weird, but then when it gets closer it looks better. They did it the opposite way this time, which is a bit of a shame because it definitely would have looked a little bit better if they did it that other way, but you know, it's alright. Not the biggest deal. And I will say though, I do like that BROLY's hair is actually moving, at least once he gets to the final bit there. And not to mention, they actually bothered to remember the fact that like the hair is kind of a little bit longer in the back, so you can see those couple strands in the back moving there, which is a nice little detail. And then of course you have BROLY come down and punch the enemy. Again, the hair moving a little bit, with BROLY obviously slamming him into the ground, which looks pretty good with all the rocks exploding. And then I do like this little animation here. Very cool little bit of perspective with the camera of obviously BROLY kind of coming from behind the camera and then to be in front of it. And then of course with him landing with a thud, obviously kind of emphasizing how powerful he is. That's pretty cool. This cut is a little bit jarring, and I think that's only because BROLY's so far away, and then it goes to this really nice close-up asset. That is definitely a little bit of like a whoa, hello. But this shot is really, really nice, obviously with BROLY charging the key, and then of course throwing it. I love the lighting effects, by the way, obviously going green when the light is kind of emanating from the blast, right? I think that looks really, really good personally. Even the movement is very, very fluid on BROLY, obviously lifting it above his head. I think that that all looks really good. And then of course you have Trunks join in here. No real complaints on the motion there. I suppose maybe when he changes from like, you know, the landing position to then bring his arm back, that could maybe use a little bit more work, but it's okay, right? It's definitely not the worst. And it is a nice little setup for, of course, the money shot, right? Having them both bring their arms forward. And then, of course, switching to this front perspective, which is awesome. Obviously, this is, like, the best shot, you know, in the super attack. Like, this is probably the thumbnail. This is such a really, really cool animation. I like the little background, right, kind of emphasizing the intensity of the scene, and obviously having their hair move. The key blasts in their hands look great, and not to mention the shading on their hands is also fantastic, right, with having it kind of get a little bit darker in their hands. Look at that. Oh my gosh. And obviously the shading on them looks really, really cool too. They did such a good job on that. Obviously having that be a little bit darker with the key blast growing in front of them. And they do a nice little flash of white here to then transition to the key blasts, obviously then flying towards the enemy, and you kind of can't really see Trunks and BROLY as much anymore before it crashes into the enemy. The only thing that would have really made this card, I feel like, is if they would have had a KO screen on the 18 key. That would have been so cool. Obviously Trunks' 12 key, right, does end up being the, like, this face, right, with him kind of there. But it would have been really cool to have some kind of thing of like them giving each other a thumbs up or something like that. But nonetheless, I think that this animation is still really, really good. Again, because this is a free LR from the story mode, I think they did a very, very good job with these guys. Again, we're of course not rating them on the same like intensity or scale as like a Dokkan Fest or Dokkan Fest LR, but I think that they still have pretty solid animations for a free-to-play unit. There's of course a couple things here and there that they could definitely improve on, but overall I think it's pretty good. And it's very nice to have kind of taken a look at this unit as it's sort of grown, right, from its infancy of, you know, taking a look at the animations for this guy from when he was a SSR, right? Obviously just seeing the super attack animation look like this with the base form Trunks, right, with him kind of punching and kicking and giving us the funny blue background there, right, to then of course later on it evolving into the TUR, which of course this animation not only incorporates the 12 key, obviously with the Super Saiyan version of Trunks, but they do a good job splicing in BROLY to make it feel very natural. By the way, obviously the enemy sprite is just not displayed, that's why they're attacking nothing. But they do a great job of weaving BROLY into the super attack animation. It's clear that when they made that Trunks SSR, they kind of went backwards from this animation and, you know, made it so that, you know, like, they still had a good looking animation for Trunks even when BROLY wasn't there. But obviously would look good with BROLY there. And then of course that ends up being the 12 key super attack for of course the 18 key. That we've been taking a look at for this entire video. So I think they did a really good job with this unit. Honestly, it is such a cool unit just in general, right? Obviously, a Trunks and Broly unit is probably something that I don't think anybody ever thought that we were going to be getting in Dokkan. So it's really cool to see that obviously, you know, this is the way that they decide to do this. And I hope they do more stuff like this. It would be awesome if they went back and did some other like moments from the Dokkan story and made them into LRs, or if they just did it more in the future. I think that that would be awesome. Obviously, this is the active skill. I just figured I'd throw it in the video since we're just kind of giving a little recap of their animations here. And again, right, they did a very good job just kind of using this. Obviously, they do this all the time where active skills in Dokkan and stuff like that ends up being cutscenes in the game. So it's cool to see that you can actually use this, you know, as like the player, right? And not just have to obviously watch the cutscene to see this in game. So that is pretty cool. Before we go for today, obviously, I did want to give you the reference for the 18 key. I'm going to encourage you to check out the entire video. I'm not going to show... Hello, Nero-sama. I saw you pop in there. I'm not going to show you the entire beginning of the video for the active skill and the 12 key. So definitely go check that out in the description below. Of course, I'll leave a link to iKevinX's video because, you know, well, I want you to watch the original video. He does fantastic work, obviously giving references to everything in here. He does a great job. Now, with that being said, right, this is the 18 key super attack and lots of fantastic references here, right? Before we even get into the nitty gritty, obviously, again, right, this is a reference to this scene from DBZ, which, you know, is what AGL Trunks references, so that's why it looks so familiar. And, of course, with this Trunks, iKevinX actually is not sure what it's from. Which is really interesting. It could be from a couple of different things, right? Because it certainly could be this pose, but obviously the fists are not the same. And it could be that one too, but obviously the face is not the same. So maybe a combination of the two. But of course, Broly's is from that scene in the Broly movie. And I didn't even know this, but this punch and kick sequence is a combination of stuff from, you know, a bunch of different parts where Trunks is punching the enemy, which is really cool. And this shot of Broly, I actually didn't know this. This is from when he smashes through into Goku's room, which is really cool. And this shot is a bit of a like combination sort of different shots of Broly. And as you can see here, right, with Trunks when they blast away Cell's tank, very, very cool. They definitely did a really good job kind of mashing up a bunch of different scenes from Dragon Ball to really make a pretty cool looking animation. And honestly, even though there are some cuts in between some of the stuff and whatnot, I think it's pretty fluid overall because there are some animations that you can just tell when Dokkan like kind of just puts a bunch of things together, right? They basically just duct tape a bunch of scenes together to try and make a coherent essay, and then it doesn't end up looking coherent. I think this one is definitely not that, right? I think that this is very coherent in terms of the way that the animation fully plays out. It feels like an actual sequence that is happening rather than a bunch of scenes spliced together. So very, very good work. Thank you, iKevinX, as always, for you know, giving us these fantastic comparison videos. Again, definitely go check out this video in the description below. And of course, let me know what you think of the LR, Broly, and Trunks. I know, unfortunately, Global does not have this guy just yet, but obviously they will be getting them pretty soon because Global has been getting the area updates, so I'm sure that it won't be too long until Global gets their hands on these guys. But let me know what you think of all of this unit's animations in the comments section below. I will definitely, whenever we get more free-to-play units, it's something like we kind of know that they're going to get an Awakening, or we know that they're going to get an LR. I will certainly do more videos like this, because this was honestly a blast doing these 3 different videos, right? Talking about, obviously, the SSR when that first came out, and then the TUR when that then came out, and now finally the LR to cap it off. It's always a good time talking about free-to-play units as well because it's so refreshing. It feels almost like a lot less pressure somehow than talking about Dokkan Fest and LRs and summable units for some reason. I don't know, but it's always a little bit refreshing to talk about some free units as well because it's interesting to see the differences between the free essays and the units that they want you to spend your hard-earned Dragon Stones on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video. Let me know if you guys have this unit on your JP box, or on your JP box, in your JP box rather, and I will see you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.